We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh yeah. Good. So finally, first episode ever. How you think? What do you think?
Fun story. This is actually not the first episode ever. We actually recorded a few months ago. We actually had them in Spanish. We had some in English. The thing is, we got so technical with it that we never got to edit the podcast. So this time we decided to keep it simple, just one camera recording both of us, and let's just get to talking pretty much.
All right. We have this thing too. Yeah.
Yay.
Good choice. So that's a little bit of a fancy toy that we decided to purchase a few months ago, and that's kind of like when we started, but you guys don't need this, okay?
Yeah. So before we start with today's episode, I just want to get everybody on the same page, right? And Luis Daniel, can you tell me a little bit about what are we going to be talking about in this podcast, in Content is Profit? What is Content is Profit?
Content is Profit is basically the new company that we decided to kind of start. Like, it's a new twist and is focused on how the content that you produce and the things that you publish on a daily basis can turn into profit for you and your business. What does that mean? We're going to discover that in the episodes to come. So leave it to that. Does that make sense?
I hope it does.
I hope it does.
If it doesn't make sense, please leave us a question. We are going to be getting back to those as soon as we can.
All right. So, FONZI, today we're going to be talking about your story and how you got started with this. And it wasn't always Content is Profit, or it wasn't always BIZBROS. It was only you at first. So
it was just, we started together. And we ride together, guys. But yeah, at the beginning you were very busy with your job, and it was mostly me. Yeah.
So how do you start it? Like, why do you decided to start a company with your brother, with me?
It's a very good question. Everybody has their own background and their own stories on how they got to where they are, right? And so everybody knows, you can see I have an Arsenal jersey. I'm a huge soccer fan, especially an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, today we were supposed to wear our BIZBROS uniform.
Yeah, but today my team is playing, so I cannot betray them. I gotta wear their jersey.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in Venezuela. We both did. We were born and raised in Venezuela, and when I was 18 after high school, I was fortunate enough that I got a scholarship to play soccer here in the States. And so I moved to Texas at first. I spent about 3 years in Texas going to school there, playing college soccer. And then I moved here to Jacksonville.
How was that experience in Texas?
It was awesome. It was change. It was a big cultural shock because I first moved into a super small town. It's called Wichita Falls. With all due respect, I love Wichita Falls. It was awesome. I came from the capital of Venezuela, Caracas, so very big city in comparison to Wichita Falls. But it was great. I met really great people. But I think it was there where I started realizing that I didn't really want to follow the natural path of someone that goes to college. I never...
Yeah, thank you.
There we go. I think I never realized... I think I realized at that moment that I didn't enjoy going to school as much. I like to do my own thing, and at that moment it was soccer. Soccer was my own thing, right? I was thinking of, okay, who can I coach? Can I coach other kids? Time went by. 3 years in Texas, then I moved to Jacksonville. I went to college here, and while I was here, I was actually playing for a professional team. I was part of their first team. Of the very first team that they came up. I did the tryouts, they selected me, and that's the reason why I stayed in Jacksonville, not because of this guy right here. And
so would you say like that that time, was it easy for you? Like, were you having a hard time kind of adapting? What was going on through your head?
It was not that difficult adapting because, I mean, I've been in the US for a few years at that point. I was just living in an air mattress at your living room, which was always fun, of course.
It was not just me and him, by the way. It was like 3 people, well, 4 people plus my brother. So
yeah, it was
plus 2 dogs.
His now wife, 2 dogs, 2 other roommates with their pets. So
yeah, it was busy.
It was fun though. It was
the frat house.
It was fun. It was a learning experience. So I was sleeping in the air mattress, and I'm very thankful to soccer because it allows me to make a lot of, like, build relationships quickly, make a lot of friends. And one of those friendships actually led to my first job, which was Happy Feet Soccer. So for those that don't know about Happy Feet, it's a franchise. We would go to daycares and we would just teach these kids how to play soccer, pretty much. Kids 2 to 6 year olds. So I think we develop a lot of patience working with these kids. And
believe me, adults are not so different.
yeah. So I mean, fast forward a little bit more, and I graduated from college, and when I graduated, I was like, okay, I think it's enough of Happy Feet. I love it. I love working with the kids, and my boss he was super cool. We still have a really good relationship with him, but I was like, okay, I know for a fact that I don't want to go and get a job, but at the same time, I have no idea what I want to do. But at the same time, I know I do not want to stay in Happy Feet, because if I stay here working with these little kids, eventually I might not want kids of my own. Just because it was very intense.
Yeah,
very intense work
during that time. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with that job, it was not just coaching, right? It was also trying to sell this program.
So it was not just coaching. We had after my brother stepped down, because he worked there as well, I got the director role. So I was in charge of marketing the program. I had to go to schools and sell the program to the parents. Honestly, on the surface, the job was coaching the kids, but I mean, as any other business, if you don't have clients, if you don't sell the program, you are not, like, the business is not going to be successful. So I knew that, but at the moment I wasn't confident enough to sell. If that makes sense. I didn't know how to sell. I never got education on how to sell a program. When I was in college, honestly, I never took a class that they told me, hey, you gotta start selling, and this is the way you do it, right? This is how the brain works. This is how people think about stuff. So it was a hard moment as well, just because even though, again, my boss was awesome, maybe he didn't have enough confidence in me to sell the program. But as everything, it was a good learning experience. So one day I remember I was driving to one of the schools, and at this point, I've always, like, Googled, kind of like, oh, how to make money online. Even when I was a kid, I was always like, how to make money online, how to make this online. And I run into ClickBank and just a bunch of, like, affiliate marketing stuff. But I've never actually paid attention to that. I remember looking at the big sales pages, and I would, like, scroll through them. It's like, what is this? Like, why people write so much, right? Like, just go straight to the point. And there's a why, because why sales pages are that long, right? But at that point, I was like, I just want the information quick. I just want to learn everything as fast as I can. But again, that's a conversation for another day. So at this point, I'm researching, and I found this book. It's called .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. And I was waiting to go into a school, and I was reading this book, right? And I was like, oh man, like, this is super interesting. It goes in depth on how to build pretty much a business online. And I started reading it, and in my mind, it was just, like, blowing into pieces. I was like, oh, we can do so much with this. And that moment, I think that moment should change also my perspective on business a little bit, on how to approach business.
Also, I think we were already kind of having that conversation in the background, right? Like, we were, like, trying to, okay, what are we going to do? And,
yes,
we had some ideas, but we never really knew,
Yes, definitely. I mean, I remember you told me once that you were starting a business. I mean, you didn't tell me once. You kind of, like, started it, a blog, called Mass Life.
Oh yeah.
And we actually had an event and everything on a summer.
We'll talk about that in the next
yeah,
episode. Don't worry.
That's exactly. That's for
You
next
guys-
episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, we already we were having that conversation in the background. So I ran into this book, bought it, started reading it. I remember the exact same place where I was. I was in front of a Panda Express. Don't judge me, please. I love Panda Express. But I was sitting in front of a Panda Express in my car reading this book. And I mean, it was interesting because
What was that?
That
was a gong moment.
that was my epiphany right there at that moment. And I mean, it was honestly, I read this book and my thought was, I need to go back to my brother and tell him about this, to just share it with him. So I went back, we started talking, and right at that moment, we ran across an advertisement from this guy called Ty Lopez. I know a lot of you might not be fans of him. We don't follow him as much anymore, but at the moment he presented an opportunity that we're extremely thankful for, because thanks to his opportunity, we are where we are right now, right? And he was selling a program where you could build your own social media marketing agency. And my brother and I looked at each other and we were like, okay, how much does this cost? It was $1,000. I think the course was $1,000. And we look at each other. We're like, do we have $1,000? We're like, no, we don't have $1,000.
There was no cash at the moment.
So we're like, okay, do you have a credit card? I didn't have a credit card. Mines were like all
maxed out.
Yeah, maxed out. And he was like, I have a credit card. Like, we can put in a credit card. And we're like, you know what?
It wasn't that simple. Believe me, guys, it wasn't that simple. But we did it.
Like, we were like sweating. It's like, should we do it? Should we not? You know, at that moment, we didn't really know the power of investing in yourself. That was actually our first big investment in ourselves. And
more than college, because, you know, up to this point, we both went to college, but we were both on a soccer scholarship. So we did work for those degrees.
Yeah.
We played and sweated and did a lot of workouts and performed for 4 years straight so we could afford college. But money-wise, like out of our own pocket, I think that was the first time that we invested that big, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. That was definitely our first biggest investment. And it honestly, it paid out.
It felt huge, you know.
It felt huge.
Right now, it might not feel. For some people, it might, but
yeah,
at that moment, it felt really big.
Yeah, it felt big. It paid out though. So
what would you say, like, after that investment? Like, what did you come up with a plan? Did we come up with a plan? Like, what was like the next step?
After we invested, I mean, you were still working at that moment within the fitness industry, and we were like, okay, we're gonna start working with restaurants, right? We saw restaurants as an easy prey. We're like, I mean, you just take pictures of food and people go by, right? But we didn't have a lot of the concepts and principles that we know now, and we didn't know how to run a business. We didn't know how much to charge, anything. I mean, I remember the first restaurant that I pitched. I was like, they asked me, how much do you charge? I was like, $500. I was like, oh no.
Out of fear.
I was so scared. I was like, I've never charged so much for anything. I mean, I've never charged for the membership that I used to charge for in Happy Fit, my first job, was $30 a month. So
we were scared to sell that.
To $500 a month. I was like, oh man, I'm like super crazy. But now looking back into it, I think it was the lack of confidence of us being able to deliver, right? We didn't have that trust in ourselves that we were able to deliver the product, the service. But again, story for another day. So I think our plan was going to that, and then, I mean, we stumble between, like, we're charging way too little. We're like all over the place.
What
processes.
What exactly were we doing with those restaurants?
Yeah, so it was, we started focusing on content. Just like, hey, we'll take pictures of your food. We'll just manage your Instagram, your Facebook. We'll just post it. You don't have to take care of any of that, right? And then, like, that's pretty much it. Like, you'll get clients. But let me tell you, it's not like that. It's not as simple as that. And there's so much that goes into this with restaurants. I mean, not restaurants, but any business in general. But I'm gonna kind of like just go above it all.
Yeah, we'll tell those stories like in depth. But like, maybe what was like the biggest lesson, right? After working with these restaurants and presenting the content the way that we were doing it, right?
Yeah.
What was that biggest? Big lesson?
Honestly, for me, the biggest lesson is that we were undercutting ourselves. You know, we weren't charging enough for the amount of work that we were doing, but also is because, again, like I said, we weren't confident enough in what we were offering, and then we didn't have any processes. We would just go randomly like, okay, what do they need? And then we started doing certain things, but also we noticed that the content that we were doing, it wasn't working, right? Because it didn't have a purpose. The content didn't have a call to action. It didn't call people to bring them to the restaurant. It was just like cute pictures, and that's it, right?
And it's great that you mentioned this, right? Because nowadays we see a lot of people that are very active on their social media, right? They're very active publishing, and if you, the main thing here, I think, is like, if your objective is just to put out information out there, and nothing wrong with that, right? But if that's the goal, great. But if your goal is to use this content and the publishing machine that you eventually can build, right, as a sales driver, we need something in the back where you can direct people to, right? So at the moment, that was some of the things that we were selling, and we weren't seeing it, right? We didn't know how to track it, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, very, very accurate. You know, the restaurant, and also they didn't know their numbers as well. So when we shared that information, they shared that information with us. We didn't know exactly what to do with it. We didn't know how to measure and track the results, like he was saying. So it became very, very challenging. So at the end, we actually stopped working with them. We actually engineered a little plan, a little master plan, where my brother, he actually took me to his fitness studio where he was working, and we presented everybody on how our content strategy could help their business, right? And at this point, we were more educated. We were gaining confidence in what we offer, and so they actually hired me, kind of like a subcontractor / employee. So I started working with them for all their studios here in Jacksonville, Florida, where we are, and we started testing lots of things, right? Like what type of content we started. And while we were doing all this, we were educating ourselves as well. We were following marketers like Russell Brunson. We started running into Steve Larson, right? Which we consider him our mentor. He's amazing. And many others.
I also think a very important factor here was that the studios that we brought this into, like fitness-wise, right? It's a lot of very active people inside of the business.
Yeah.
Like you have coaches, you have the members, right? And they were actually willing to do this, right? So that's maybe one of those steps that if you're looking into that content creation, that publishing, right? And we're gonna talk about the different types and video and so on. At the time, we're doing video with them, right? And we had these awesome personalities that they were not fearful to be in front of a camera, right? And if you are, there's ways to make that a little bit better.
Totally fine.
So it helped us a lot to try different things, to be consistent, to do a lot of tries, right?
Yeah.
And that was very, very awesome. Very awesome. Is that a thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was great that we had the opportunity to test all these things, all these variables, because we couldn't do that with the restaurant, right? Like it's difficult to have a sense of community in a restaurant, to be honest. But in a fitness studio, you have the people that are the members. They're going consistently. You got the coaches. People look up to the coaches, right? You get the front desk staff too, that they're friends with everybody that goes by. So there were so many elements that it was pretty much like a formula for successful content. And it was great for us because at the same time, while we were working with them, we had the opportunity to see other social media agencies pitch the studios multiple times. And I remember specifically this one day, I was sitting and we had like 4 or 5 different agencies like pitching, and I was just listening one after the other, and in my mind I was like, wow, all these agencies are saying the exact same thing. They're pitching the exact same process, just maybe changing the terms a little bit. And I mean, I don't know if the owners realized or not, but I was like, at the end I was like, it doesn't matter who you hire, they're all gonna do the same exact thing. And the problem is that since they were doing the same exact thing, they were getting the same exact results. And
they wanted something different.
Those results were expensive leads, very expensive leads actually for the business, and not enough clients, right? So that moment we ask ourselves, okay, like why? Like what is it that changes? You know, like what is it that makes someone turns into a lead, or even better, turns into a customer better in an easier way without friction than just advertising, you know, like slap an advertisement on your face, right? Like these agencies were doing. And I think that's the moment where we started thinking about it. Like, wow, you know, we started observing what these great marketers were doing. Again, Russell Brunson, Steve Larsen, especially, we were following them.
Even Gary Vee, right?
Because Gary Vee, exactly. Even he's not much of a direct marketer per se, but yeah, he is consistent with his publishing. And that's what we noticed with these people, that they were all very extremely consistent with their content. They were just publishing day in and day out.
When we talk publishing, it's not just organic, right? Ads have to play a very big piece in this thing, because
definitely
it's basically, and we're gonna get into this obviously as we move on into the podcast, but it's a faster way to reach your audience.
Yeah, and it's an element, right? It's an
one of the elements of publishing,
of the bigger picture,
the big machine.
Yeah, because again, we all know, this is no secret, that organic reach has been limited, so people spend more money, especially for businesses, right? But you cannot just slap an ad on someone's faces and pretend that you're gonna create trust that way, and they're just gonna buy immediately for you, right? Like there's gonna be a lot of frictions. They're gonna have questions. They're gonna have they want their questions answered by you.
Yeah. So after identifying those little items, right? How, like, from that moment on, how did this transform into Content is Profit?
Yeah.
You know, from your point of view.
That's a great question, right? So fast forward a little bit more, and I stopped working for that studio, but fun stuff, like fun anecdote, I guess, they hired us as they are our clients now, I guess. That's how you say it. And
we're in this together.
Yeah, we're in this together. But yeah, we transitioned. We started investing more in ourselves. We invested in these programs, and they helped us pretty much nail down our message, right? Like, what is it that you guys can do? And if you know about funnels, direct response marketing, there's a lot of elements that go to it, right? And we were doing all those when we work with people, but that's the problem. You don't have processes, and when you go into someone and they're like, oh, can you do this? And we're like, yeah, we'll do it for you. And then somebody else will ask something else. We're like, yeah, we'll do it for you too. And it would just get confusing when we were trying to fulfill everybody. So after my brother, he quit earlier, well, in 2019, because we're in 2020 now.
As we're recording this podcast, it was maybe 3 months ago.
No, like 4 months ago.
4 months ago.
And so he quit his job, and he's like, you know what? I'm all in. So I think it was that moment where we were like, okay, like we're all in. You got to risk it to get the biscuit, and we are gonna figure this thing out, right? And at that moment, we were offering a little bit of everything. And after investing more in ourselves and learning from these people, the light went out. After investing with these people, we realized that we needed to focus in one of the elements of the whole funnel, right? And we were like, hey, our whole business experience has been around content, has been around direct response marketing. So, and we are pretty good at it. So let's focus what we do. The one thing that we do is create direct response content that brings frictionless sales. Let's go!
Vamos!
So, yeah, that's what we do now, guys. That is Content is Profit, is creating direct response content that brings frictionless sales to your fitness studio, baby. Let's go!
All right, guys. So that's, a little bit quick. And, as we move forward with this podcast, which we will, The idea is to do 1 episode a week, and we want to hear like what you guys think, right? First off, if you are on the Facebook Live feed, put any questions, any comments that you feel like it, good, bad, positive, happy, sad, angry, whatever you want. You can put it in there, and also in the podcast while you listen in all the different platforms. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any questions about content in general, about publishing, how can your content, what you have to offer, how can you get your value that's inside of you, your knowledge, out to the public, right? If you're in the fitness industry, honestly, these frameworks work in any industry. We're right now focusing on the fitness, but if you have any general questions, you can go to contentisprofit.com. You can drop us your number 1 question in there, also in the comments of any of the platforms, and we'll be happy to help you guys out move forward.
Yeah, we'll get back to you guys. Feel free to leave as many questions as you want. Any feedback that you may have as well is more than welcome. We want to make this podcast for you. Not only make it educational, but entertaining as well. So you guys have a good time while you're listening to it. Hey,
it's like everything that he says, people like, whatever.
But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions on how to get more memberships through content, how to sell more programs, just go to contentisprofit.com. See ya.